Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. There's been a storm brewing in Washington, and it's not about politics this time. It's all about football. The Commanders' locker room, usually quiet and disciplined, has been hit with a wave of whispers after star wide receiver Terry McLaurin reportedly took aim at head coach Dan Quinn. Now, if you've followed the Commanders over the past few seasons, you know McLaurin isn't the kind of guy to stir up drama. He's respected, consistent, and a true leader both on and off the field. So when a player like that lets frustration slip, it means something deeper is bubbling under the surface. According to people close to the team, McLaurin voiced his disappointment with Quinn's defensive-minded approach and his lack of adaptability on offense. That's a big statement coming from a guy who's carried the passing game on his shoulders since his rookie year. Sources say this wasn't just a passing comment in frustration. It was a pointed critique made during a closed-door team meeting after another rough offensive outing. And when a captain speaks up like that, the whole locker room listens, even if the coaching staff doesn't want to admit it. The tension apparently started weeks ago when McLaurin felt that the offense was being handcuffed by overly conservative play calling. Quinn, known for his defensive genius and fiery energy, has been trying to rebuild Washington's identity since taking the reins, but some players feel he's focusing too much on structure and not enough on creativity. McLaurin reportedly told teammates that the team had lost its rhythm and didn't trust its weapons, which is pretty telling when you consider how talented this roster actually is. Behind closed doors, some players have echoed McLaurin's thoughts, suggesting that the offense has become predictable and uninspired. Fans have noticed, too. The spark that once made McLaurin one of the most electric receivers in the league just hasn't been the same. When the ball rarely finds your hands in key moments, frustration is bound to build. Still, for Terry to speak up against his coach, that's a major shift in tone from a guy who's always preached unity and professionalism. Something must have really hit a nerve. The irony in all this is that Dan Quinn was supposed to be the culture fixer. When he arrived in Washington, he talked about accountability, energy, and bringing out the best in his players. For a while, it seemed like everyone bought in. Training camp was intense, practices were crisp, and players talked about how refreshing it was to have a coach who cared about discipline and attention to detail. But as the losses piled up and the offense kept stalling, cracks started to appear. McLaurin, who's been through multiple coaching changes and quarterback experiments, may have simply reached his breaking point. Some insiders believe his criticism wasn't meant to tear down Quinn, but to spark change. Still, in a league where every word gets magnified, especially from a star player, it's impossible to contain something like that once it gets out. The message boards, podcasts, and sports talk shows are already running wild with speculation about a possible rift inside the team. And honestly, it feels like the beginning of something bigger. Rumors are swirling that several veteran players quietly agree with McLaurin's sentiment, but are keeping their heads down to avoid friction with the coaching staff. The vibe inside the Commanders' facility is said to be tense, polite on the surface, but uneasy underneath. One source described it as walking on eggshells, with players unsure how honest they can be without crossing a line. Quinn, for his part, has brushed off any talk of division, calling it outside noise, and insisting the team is focused on the next game. But come on, in today's NFL, players have voices, platforms, and influence like never before. When a leader like McLaurin speaks, it sends ripples not just through the locker room, but through the fan base and front office too. If the team doesn't respond quickly on the field, those ripples can turn into waves that rock the entire organization. It's worth remembering that McLaurin has always been known for his professionalism. He's not the kind of player who lashes out without reason. This is the guy who's caught passes from a revolving door of quarterbacks, never complained publicly, and still put up consistent numbers season after season. So when a player like that finally lets some frustration show, you have to wonder how deep the issues really go. Some analysts suggest that McLaurin's comments reflect a larger problem, a disconnect between the team's offensive identity and its leadership. There's talk that certain position coaches have been frustrated with Quinn's reluctance to give more autonomy to the offense, especially with so much young talent waiting to break out. Whether this is just a rough patch or the start of a bigger conflict could define the Commanders' season. And if the situation isn't handled carefully, It could even impact McLaurin's future with the franchise. Fans, of course, are split. Some are siding with McLaurin, arguing that he's earned the right to speak his mind after years of being the face of a struggling team. Others are defending Quinn, saying he deserves time to implement his system and turn things around. But no matter which side you're on, one thing's clear. The calm, composed image of the Commanders is starting to crack. Social media has lit up with theories, memes, and debates about what's really happening behind closed doors. The narrative has shifted from optimism to uncertainty almost overnight. And for a team that's been trying to rebuild its reputation and re-energize its fan base, that's not a good look. The next few games could determine whether this moment becomes just a blip on the radar or the spark that ignites a full-blown locker room fire. Now here's where it gets interesting, the fallout. According to people inside the organization, Quinn didn't take McLaurin's criticism lightly. While he didn't call him out publicly, sources say the coach addressed the team the very next morning, emphasizing respect and alignment. That's coach speak for keep your issues in-house. But the problem is, the leak's already out there. Reporters caught wind of the tension, and suddenly every press conference feels like a chess match. McLaurin's body language during interviews has been dissected, frame by frame, while Quinn has been questioned about leadership and communication. The pressure is mounting from every direction: the fans, the front office, and the media. It's the kind of environment where one bad loss can spiral into chaos. And with Washington sitting in a tough division, the margin for error is razor thin. The vibe is unmistakable. Something's got to give, and soon. Behind the scenes, veteran players are reportedly stepping in to calm things down. Jonathan Allen, a respected voice on defense, has been trying to bridge the gap between the locker room and the coaching staff. According to one insider, Allen pulled McLaurin aside after practice and told him to keep leading, but keep it controlled. That right there says it all. The leaders know they can't afford open conflict, but they also recognize the legitimacy of McLaurin's frustration. Meanwhile, assistant coaches have been caught in the middle, trying to balance loyalty to Quinn with the reality that the offense needs serious adjustment. Some are quietly advocating for more flexibility in play calling, while others fear rocking the boat. This kind of tension can either destroy a team or forge it into something stronger. It all depends on how the next few weeks unfold, and whether the Commanders can find their rhythm before the noise becomes unbearable. The front office, too, isn't sitting idle. There are whispers that ownership is monitoring the situation closely, especially since McLaurin is one of the franchise's biggest investments and public faces. Losing his trust would be disastrous from a PR and locker room standpoint. Sources say some executives are already exploring ways to mediate the situation, which could mean private meetings, leadership summits, or even quiet changes in coaching responsibilities. The irony is that all this drama is happening just as the Commanders were trying to turn a new page and build credibility under Quinn's leadership. Instead, they're facing yet another test of internal stability. And make no mistake, in today's NFL, perception matters almost as much as performance. The team's image, its unity, and its ability to keep players like McLaurin motivated will define whether this becomes a comeback story or another chapter in a long saga of disappointment. On the field, McLaurin has continued to perform, but there's a noticeable edge to his play. He's running his routes sharper, blocking harder, and letting his intensity speak louder than words. It's like he's channeling his frustration into every snap, trying to remind everyone just how vital he is to this team's success. Fans have noticed, too. The crowd reaction whenever McLaurin touches the ball has grown louder, almost as if they're rallying behind him. Meanwhile, the offense has started experimenting with new looks, more motion, quicker reads, and a few creative wrinkles that weren't there before. Some insiders believe this is a direct response to the criticism, a subtle acknowledgement that something needed to change. Whether it's enough to calm the waters remains to be seen, but at least it's movement in the right direction. Still, this story isn't going away until the Commanders start winning again. And here's the big question: what happens if they don't? If the Commanders keep sliding, it's only a matter of time before the front office has to make some hard decisions. Does Quinn adjust and find common ground with his stars, or does he double down on his system? Does McLaurin stay patient, or does he start thinking about life beyond Washington? These are the questions everyone's whispering about right now. This kind of tension, especially between a respected veteran and a new head coach, has a way of snowballing. You start with a few tough comments in a meeting, and before long, you've got trade rumors, media speculation, and divided locker rooms. The NFL is as much about managing personalities as it is about managing plays. And in this case, both sides are walking a very thin line between passion and chaos. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. Ultimately, this situation might define Dan Quinn's tenure in Washington. Every coach preaches about culture, leadership, and accountability, but those ideas are only tested when the heat turns up. For Quinn, this is that moment. And for Terry McLaurin, it's a test of how far a leader can go to demand change without tearing things apart. The story has all the ingredients of classic NFL drama: star player, new coach, high expectations, and a city desperate for a winning team. The next few weeks will tell us whether this was just a moment of emotional honesty or the first sign of a much deeper divide. But one thing's for sure: all eyes are now on Washington, and the whispers have turned into a roar. Everyone's waiting to see who speaks next: the coach, the player, or the scoreboard. There's also the human side of all this, the emotional weight that comes with carrying a franchise on your back. Terry McLaurin has been that guy for years, through rebuilds, losing streaks, and constant change at quarterback. He's the face the fans trust, the jersey kids wear, the steady hand in a sea of uncertainty. So when he finally shows frustration, it's not about ego, it's about exhaustion. Players like McLaurin want to win, not just put up stats or collect checks. They want to feel like their voice matters in shaping the team's direction. And that's the heart of this story: communication. It's not about Dan Quinn's playbook or McLaurin's targets. It's about whether the locker room feels heard. Because once players stop believing their input matters, that's when a team starts to fracture for real. Whether Quinn recognizes that and takes action will say everything about his future as a leader in Washington. Sometimes, leadership isn't about giving orders. It's about listening before it's too late. The coming weeks will be a test of character for everyone involved. If the Commanders can rally, if Quinn and McLaurin can find common ground, this moment could actually strengthen the team. It could become the turning point that builds trust and fuels a playoff push. But if the tension lingers, if the conversations stay behind closed doors and nothing changes, the fallout could define the entire season, or even the next few years. The NFL moves fast, and reputations shift overnight. Today's rumor becomes tomorrow's headline. What started as a quiet comment from a frustrated leader has now become the pulse of an entire franchise. And whether fans realize it or not, this might be the most important storyline unfolding in Washington right now. Not about stats, not about schemes, but about belief. Because in the end, belief is what turns a team into a family. And right now, the Commanders are fighting to remember that. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.